I'm sitting in the same spot I've sat every night for the past 6 months, slouched on my second-hand couch, phone in one hand, glass of cheap wine in the other. The lamp beside me flickers every so often, but I don't bother fixing it. What's the point? No one's coming over to see me. Tonight, my thumb freezes mid-scroll. There it is. A picture I can't unsee. Ryan, my Ryan, standing in a perfectly tailored navy suit, his arm wrapped around a woman in a flowing white gown. The caption is short and sweet, she said yes. I can't wait to spend forever with you, Sophie. My stomach twists, the way it does when you know you've made a mistake you can never undo. I can still hear the words that came out of my own mouth 2 years ago, as clearly as if I'd said them this morning. I can't marry you, Ryan. If I do, I'll lose my alimony from Mark. My health insurance. Everything I've worked to keep since the divorce. Back then, I thought I was being practical. Smart. Responsible. I thought I could keep the man I loved without giving up the financial cushion I'd fought for in the courtroom. I thought Ryan would understand, that he'd wait until I was ready, until I could figure out a way to have both. But here I am. No man. No alimony. No health plan. 2 years ago, my life looked very different. I lived in a sunny townhouse with hardwood floors that caught the morning light. I went to brunch every Sunday. Vacations were spontaneous, a weekend in Napa, a few days in Miami, dinners that cost more than my rent now. And through it all, Ryan was there. Not a flashy man, but the kind who opened doors, remembered my favorite wine, and made me laugh so hard I'd forget to be careful. He wanted a life with me, marriage, maybe kids, definitely a future. But underneath the smiles, I was afraid. Afraid of losing the one thing I thought would keep me safe, the steady monthly checks from Mark, my ex-husband. They were my safety net, my security blanket. Without them, I told myself, I'd be one misstep away from disaster. So when Ryan asked for forever, I stalled. And stalled. And finally, I said no. People love to say, you can't have your cake and eat it too. But what if you have both, the cake, the fork, the whole damn table, and you still end up starving? 6 years ago, I walked away from a 12-year marriage to Mark, a man who made more in a quarter than most people made in a year. He was a successful businessman, sharp suit, sharper tongue. We weren't a match made in heaven, but we had a lifestyle most people only dream about. The divorce was ugly. Lawyers drained us both dry emotionally, but I walked away with what I thought was a golden parachute, generous monthly alimony and full health insurance coverage. The catch? It would all stop the moment I remarried. At the time, that condition didn't seem like a problem. I wasn't planning to marry again anytime soon. I told myself I deserved the money after everything I'd put up with, and so, I built a comfortable life without working much. I dabbled in a small online boutique that I treated more like a hobby than a business. My mornings started late, my afternoons were filled with coffee dates or shopping trips, and my nights were for wine and Netflix. Then I met Ryan. He was nothing like Mark. No tailored suits, no constant phone calls during dinner, no condescending smirk when I got emotional. Ryan worked as a contractor, loved camping trips, and had this calm, grounded energy that made me feel safe. He knew I was divorced, but I never went into detail about the alimony arrangement. Why would I? It wasn't exactly first date material. What started as casual dinners turned into weekends away, then meeting each other's friends. He made me laugh until my cheeks hurt, and he had this habit of kissing me on the forehead like I was the most precious thing in the world. We dated for 3 years. During that time, Ryan talked about marriage often, not in a pushy way, but enough that I knew it was important to him. Every time, I deflected with a practice line, let's wait until we're more stable. He thought I meant financially stable as a couple. In reality, I meant me. I wasn't ready to give up my financial cushion. I loved Ryan, but the thought of losing the steady monthly checks from Mark made my stomach knot. That money wasn't just security, it was freedom. Freedom from fear, from scrambling to pay bills, from starting over at the bottom. But little cracks started to form. Ryan began asking small questions about my finances, not in an invasive way, but curious. "You don't seem stressed about money, how do you do it?" I'd shrug and change the subject. Then came the comment that stuck with me. I was at brunch with friends when one of them laughed and said, "She's never going to marry him, she's got it too good with that alimony." I laughed along like it was a joke. But inside, my chest tightened. Because maybe, they were right. It happened in late autumn, the air crisp enough to make my cheeks sting as we drove north to the lakeside cabin Ryan had rented for a quiet weekend away. From the moment we arrived, I noticed how much thought he'd put into everything. The cabin was warm and cozy, a fire already crackling in the stone fireplace. The table was set with candles, and he'd somehow managed to cook my favorite meal, garlic butter scallops with roasted asparagus. After dinner, Ryan suggested we take our wine out onto the deck. The lake shimmered under the moonlight, the kind of scene that felt too perfect to be real. I leaned against the railing, inhaling the cool night air, when I heard him clear his throat. "Claire," he began, his voice warm but nervous, "these last 3 years have been the best of my life. You've made me happier than I ever thought I could be. And I want to spend the rest of my life making you just as happy." I turned to see him on one knee, a small velvet box in his hand. The diamond inside caught the light, sparkling like something out of a movie. But instead of my heart swelling, my stomach dropped. Panic surged through me, so fast I could barely think. I imagined the alimony check stopping. The loss of my health insurance. The way my comfortable life would suddenly be uncertain. I should have hugged him. I should have said yes and figured it out later. But the words that came out of my mouth weren't yes. My voice cracked. "If I marry you, I lose my alimony. My health insurance. I can't do that right now." The look on his face was something I'll never forget, first confusion, then hurt, and finally, a quiet, hollow understanding. "So," he said slowly, "the money means more to you than building a life with me." "It's not like that," I insisted, stepping toward him. I need more time." He closed the ring box gently, stood, and slipped it into his pocket. "I think you need space to figure out what you really want." That night, he didn't come to bed. By morning, his duffel bag was gone. He'd left a note on the counter, "I love you, but I can't compete with your safety net." I told myself it was just a temporary fight, that he'd cool off and realize we could make it work. After all, love conquers all, right? But as the days turned into weeks with no call, no text, no knock at my door, I began to realize, maybe love doesn't conquer fear. And maybe I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. The first week after the proposal, I convinced myself Ryan just needed time. He still texted, but the messages were short, polite, and strangely formal, like I was a colleague instead of the woman he'd just asked to marry. "Hope you're having a good day. Busy at work, talk later. Yeah, maybe this weekend. No more, good morning, beautiful. No more late night calls just to hear my voice." I tried to act normal, to keep our conversations light and playful, but it felt like talking to someone who was already halfway out the door. Then the financial cracks began to show. One afternoon, my phone buzzed with a call from Mark. His voice was tight, impatient, just like it had been during our marriage. "My company's bleeding money," he said flatly. "I'm filing to reduce the alimony. Maybe stop it completely." I laughed, partly in disbelief, partly to keep my panic from showing. "You can't just do that. The court won't let you." "We'll see," he replied, before hanging up. I told myself he was bluffing, that the legal system would protect me. I didn't even tell Ryan, partly because I didn't want to seem weak, partly because I didn't want him thinking I suddenly needed him for financial security. But Ryan already seemed distant enough to be standing on another planet. 2 months after the proposal, he asked if we could talk. I thought maybe he was ready to work things out. We met at a quiet coffee shop, and he didn't even order a drink. "I can't do this anymore, Claire," he said, eyes steady but sad. "I don't want to be second place to a paycheck." I froze. "You're not." "Yes, I am. And I get it, money feels safe. But I don't want to be in a relationship where I have to fight to be the priority." It wasn't a fight. It wasn't even an argument. It was just over. He stood, gave me one last look, a mix of love, disappointment, and finality, and walked away. I sat there long after he left, staring at my untouched coffee, telling myself he'd come back eventually. After all, he loved me. But deep down, I knew, this time, he wasn't coming back. The court date came quicker than I expected. I walked in confident, heels clicking against the marble floor, certain the judge would see through Mark's poor me act. But when the ruling came, it felt like someone had kicked the chair out from under me. Mark's income drop was real. The documents proved it. The court ruled in his favor. My alimony was cut to less than half, and my health insurance coverage ended effective immediately. I left the courthouse in a daze, clutching papers I couldn't even bring myself to read in full. The steady stream of money I'd built my life around was no longer steady. It was a trickle, barely enough to cover rent, let alone the comfortable lifestyle I was used to. I told myself I'd figure it out. Maybe Ryan and I could. No. That door had closed months ago. The final blow came one rainy Thursday night. I was scrolling through my phone when a mutual friend posted a group dinner photo. In the corner of the frame, there he was, Ryan, smiling, his arm around a woman with soft brown hair and warm eyes. The caption was harmless enough, "Great night catching up with these two lovebirds." But my heart knew before my head did. A few clicks later, I found her profile. Sophie. A nurse. Her posts were filled with hiking trips, community events, and photos of her and Ryan laughing like they'd known each other forever. Then I saw it, a post from 2 weeks ago, Ryan down on one knee, Sophie covering her mouth in happy shock, the ring I once held in my hands now shining on her finger. She said yes. It wasn't just that he'd moved on. It was that he'd built the kind of life with her that he'd wanted with me, grounded, loving, forward-moving. And I had let it slip away for a check that was now half of what it used to be. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned, scrolling through their smiling faces, the dinners, the trips, the little moments that used to be mine. For the first time, I said the words out loud, alone in my apartment. I traded love for money. And I lost both. It wasn't about the alimony anymore. Or even the health plan. It was about the man who had been willing to build something real with me, and how I'd convinced myself I was being smart, when really, I'd just been scared. And now, there was no getting him back. These days, my mornings start at 6 a.m. Not with coffee in bed or a slow brunch, but with the sound of my phone alarm dragging me out of a thin mattress in a one-bedroom apartment that smells faintly of my downstairs neighbor's cigarettes. I work part-time at a clothing store now. No benefits. No paid time off. No health plan. I fold jeans, ring up customers, and smile through sore feet. The paycheck barely covers rent and groceries. The life I used to live, spa days, wine tours, spontaneous vacations, feels like it happened to someone else. And then there are the nights. Nights when I scroll through my phone, not looking for anything in particular, until I stumble across them. Ryan and Sophie. They got married last spring. The photos look like something out of a magazine, Ryan in a navy suit, Sophie in a lace gown, her eyes shining like she'd just been handed the world. And maybe she had. In one photo, Ryan is laughing, head tilted back, hand on Sophie's waist. That laugh used to be mine. That hand used to hold me. The gut punch isn't just that he's gone. It's that he's happy, the kind of happy I thought I could give him, if only I didn't have to give up my safety net. But safety net's fray. And mine. It snapped. I used to tell myself I was being smart, protecting myself, making decisions based on logic, not emotion. I thought I could keep the best of both worlds, the man who loved me and the financial security I'd fought for in the divorce. Turns out, I was holding on to nothing at all. Because money can run out. Health plans can disappear. But when love is real, it's the one thing that grows the more you give to it. And I gave Ryan just enough to keep him close, but never enough to keep him. I underestimated him. I thought he'd wait forever. I thought his love was something I could put on pause while I clung to a monthly check. But love doesn't work like that. And now, I'm left with memories I can't spend and regrets I can't undo. They say hindsight is 20/20ths. But hindsight doesn't hug you at night. It doesn't bring back the man who once knelt in front of you with hope in his eyes.